Hi, year 10s, and we are looking at trigonometry today. Apologies I'm not there today, but I just thought I'd record this video as a how-to guide to do the work set. So we're going to look at three different things. Firstly, we're going to look at calculating the length of the opposite side when it's the sine rule. Okay. Second one is calculate the length of the hypotenuse. Okay, so we're looking at the hypotenuse, the other side, the longest side, if we're using the sine rule, and then calculating the angle if we want to find a missing angle. Okay, so let's dive right in. So first one is again, this is on your sheets for you to do today. If you can see task one, we've got an example there where we've got an x that we need to find. They give us 9 centimeters on the other side, and our size of our angle is 48 degrees. So I'm just going to talk through how I would answer this. Firstly, we can only use trigonometry if it's a right angle triangle, and we can see we've got a right angle triangle here. So if there's a missing side, I'm either thinking I'm using Pythagoras or I'm using trigonometry. I only know one side, so I can't use Pythagoras on this. I do know an angle, so that directs me to use trigonometry. So directly from the right angle, if we go diagonally across to the opposite side and put an arrow, that will always be our hypotenuse. So our hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. So that's your first step to do. Second step, if you are finding a missing side, go from the angle they give you, and they will always give you an angle if you're finding a missing side, okay, and that will be your opposite side. It is opposite the angle, the given angle that they give you, okay. And then the other side that we use is the adjacent, and that's the one that's left. So that's the one along the bottom here. Now adjacent means it's next to or it's touching the angle that we've got. So the adjacent would be this bottom side in our case. Now using SOH-CAH-TOA, okay, we've got SOH, CAH and TOA, and we're going to link back to our learning on speed, distance, times, because we're going to use these particular triangles. Now we're only going to use sine today, so I'm only going to show you the sine one, and we just take the letters and it's SOH. Okay. And from here it's going to direct us exactly what we want to do. So I'll come back to that in a second. So we know if we're picking the ratio, we know this one is all sin, or using sine, okay, on the calculator. So we're not going to use CAH or TOA. If we did need to select it, we would say, what sides do we know? Well, we know the hypotenuse, so we do know that, so we can use it. We want to know the opposite because we need to find x, so we want to find the O. And do they give us an angle? Yes, they do. So actually I could use all three because I've got an angle. Now what don't I know anything about, or don't they want to give me? They don't give me anything about the adjacent at all, so I can't use the adjacent in my calculations because I don't know anything about it to find it. So straight away it directs us, we're going to use sin. So we know that the sin of the angle x, in this case it's going to give me 48, I'm just going to put 48 in there. The sin of 48 is equal to whatever the opposite is. Well, we don't know that because we need to find what the opposite is. Okay, divide by the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is, in this case, is 9. So I substitute that in, and in my calculator I'm going to put sin 48 equals, okay, x divided by 9. Well, we can't type x in, so we've got to solve this equation for x by getting rid of this 9 at the bottom here. Now if I'm going to move that to the opposite side, remember I'm going to do the inverse function or the opposite function. It's divide by 9 at the minute, so if I times by 9, my x is going to equal 9 times the sine of 48. And remember, in my calculator it will come up with, as soon as you press sin, it should come up with a bracket, and then you'd put the angle in. Okay, because I've got two functions here, make sure you close that bracket. Okay, otherwise it would come up with syntax error. So 9 times sin 48, press equals, and that will give you your answer there. Now I'm just going to type that in at the minute, because if I put that into my calculator, okay, if you are using your phones for a calculator, okay, you have to put it in slightly differently. So you are going to do 48 sin, okay, and then you're going to times it by 9. Okay, let's try that again. Sin 48 equals 48 sin. Okay. What I've just noticed as well, just typed it into my phone and it's come up with -7. Okay, thinking about that, it can't be a minus, it's got to be a positive number because I've got a physical side. Okay, what that's now suggesting to me, then have a look in your calculator. If your calculator does do this, can you see at the top on your screen on your phone, press deg. Okay, if you've got radians on, RAD, or the R in the middle of your calculator, it will give you the wrong answer. So it needs to be in degree mode. So first step is make sure you've got a D in the middle of your screen on your calculator, okay, or on your phone. If it's in degree mode, I'm going to try that again. I'm going to do 48 sin. That's better. It gives me 0.743144 and so on. And I'm going to times that by 9, and that's going to give me 6.68830 and a load of oddments. You can see what they've done here. They've rounded it to 1 decimal place. So if I round it there, the 8 is going to round the digit in front up. So that's going to give me my 6.7 centimeters. Okay. So just as a recap, make sure it's in degrees mode. Put your hypotenuse in first, then your opposite. We know we're going to need sin, so we're always going to be using sine of the angle equals opposite divide by hypotenuse. If we've got the angle, if we've got the opposite on the top, which we're looking to find, we need to solve for x. So let's move the denominator of my fraction away by timesing by it. So hence 9 times sin 48, and that's going to give me my answer, and we're rounding to 1 decimal place. Okay, have a go at task 1, and if you pause the video now, we'll come back for task 2. Okay, hopefully you got on alright with that. Let's go on to task 2. This one, we're finding the hypotenuse instead, so we're doing exactly the same scenario. We are going to label the hypotenuse. We're then going to label the opposite. Okay, we will label the adjacent, but we don't need it. Okay, we know we're going to use sine. So my angle given is 31. So I can write that as sin 31 equals, remember on this one, I've got the opposite, which is 6. I don't know the hypotenuse, which is x. Now again, if you remember back when we've done rearranging formula before, if we've got x on the bottom of the formula, we've got a real quick easy fix that we can do. If we just swap these two swapsies with those two, the x will move across to be in that side of the equals, and I can do 6 divide by sin 31. Okay, now hopefully you will see what they've done is they've carried the 9 through from in the equation here when they've printed this out. So if we do 6 divide by, if you're doing it in a calculator, it's 31 sin equals, okay, and that's going to give you 11.6496 and a load of oddments. Okay, remember that should be 6, not 9, and that's going to give you 11.649. Okay, remember we're rounding to 1 decimal place. Okay, and that's going to mean that that rounds down, leaving me 11.6 centimeters to 1 decimal place. Now remember the measurement we had before. Okay, we had this one being 9. Okay, this opposite one being 6. Okay, on this one my angles have changed, so hence my measurements will change. Okay, but just be careful. You can see what they've done there. They've just brought that through, so it should be 6 divided by sin 30, and you can see what we've done over here, 6 divided by sin 31, and we've written it in the format of the very first formula that they give us. Sin of the angle equals opposite divided by hypotenuse. Write in what you know and then calculate it. If you're doing it in just in a normal calculator, you can write what's here as a fraction straight in. Remember, we need to have 2 brackets around the sin 31, and you'll be able to solve that in one step. Okay, if you want to pause the video, have a go at task 2, and then we'll come back and see you in task 3. Okay, task 3. Slightly different, whereas we are finding the actual angle. They don't give us what the angle is. It wants me to find it. Okay, but they do give me the 2 sides. So I'm labeling my triangle as I would normally. That's my hypotenuse. Okay, opposite the angle is going to give me my opposite, and obviously adjacents on the bottom, but I'm not interested in that. Now, because I haven't got the angle, I'm finding what sine of the angle is. So I need to actually then move the sin across the other side, and I'm solving for x. So I'm getting rid of the sin this time. I'm still using the same fraction, okay, and to do that, okay, we're going to use the sin minus 1 key. So whether that's on your phone or your calculator, you want the sign on there at the top of your calculator. It's in beige and it'll say sin minus 1. So you need to press shift, okay, and then sin, and that will give you sin minus 1. Then you're just going to write the fraction, put the bracket, and you're going to do 11 divided by 14. We're still doing opposite divide by hypotenuse. So once I've got that, I can put it all in one. Okay, so again, if you're on your phone, it will be second function. So if you're on an iPhone, you are the second button down that says second, and then that will change the sin, the cos, and the tan to -1. Press the number first, remember. So we're going to go 11 divided by 14 equals, that gives me 0.7857 and a load of oddments. And then we're going to do second function and sin minus 1. And that's going to give me 51.786 and a load of oddments. Remember, we're rounding it. We have been rounding it to 1 decimal place. So if you did it again to 1 decimal place, you'd have 51.8 degrees to 1 decimal place. But you can see what they've done here is they've rounded it to the nearest degree. So I would always recommend you round angles, unless they tell you otherwise, to the nearest degree. So if we did round that to the nearest degree, I'm just going to change colour here. Okay, that means that that one there, we're rounding the 7 up, which is going to give me up by 1, which gives me my 52 degrees. Okay, have a go at task 3. Hope you got on alright. Once you've done task 1, task 2 and task 3, okay, task 4 is exactly the same, but this time we don't know which one we're using. It's either going to be task 1, task 2 or task 3. You're either finding the opposite like we are doing here, you're finding the angle like we are doing here, or you're finding the hypotenuse as we are doing on question 3. Okay, hope you're going alright, and we'll see you tomorrow.